The funeral reception was still going on downstairs when everything fell apart. Nora Callahan could hear the low murmur of voices drifting up through the floorboards of her father-in-law's house. The house where she'd spent every Christmas for 11 years, where she'd learned to make tortilla from scratch, because Walter had asked her to, where her daughter Lily had taken her first steps on the back porch, while Walter clapped and cried at the same time. Nora stood at the bedroom window in her black dress, her good heels cutting into her feet, watching snow come down soft and steady over the backyard. She heard her husband before she saw him. Kevin's footsteps on the stairs had a different weight to them than usual, heavier, faster. Like a man who'd just been told something that changed the shape of the world. He came through the door without knocking. He never used to not knock. "Will," he said, and the way he said it, not sad, not grieving, but bright with something sharp and hungry, made Nora's stomach drop before he got another word out. She turned from the window slowly. Kevin was still in his suit, his tie loosened. His eyes had a shine to them she hadn't seen before, or maybe hadn't let herself recognize. Cold, lit up, like a window into a room she'd never been invited into. "Already?" she said. "I thought Hendrix said next week." He pulled me aside. Wanted to give me the highlights early. Kevin walked to the dresser, ran his hand along the edge of it. "Dad left me everything, Nora." She waited. There had to be more to that sentence. The property in Muskoka, the condo downtown, the investment accounts, the business. He counted on his fingers the way Lily counted her Halloween candy. The whole thing, all of it, it's mine. Nora's first instinct was relief. Walter had taken care of his son, the way Walter always took care of people. Her second instinct, the one that came half a second later and sat colder in her chest, was the way Kevin had said mine. "That's wonderful," she said carefully. "Your dad wanted to take care of you. Of us." Kevin looked at her then, and the way his gaze moved across her face, assessing, distant, made her feel like a stranger in a room she'd decorated herself. "About that," he said. She waited. "Hendrix mentioned you got something too." A small warmth flickered in her chest. Maybe Walter had left her the old rocking chair she loved, or the photo albums he'd always promised she could have. Something personal, something to carry him with her. "He left you an envelope." Nora held very still. "That's it," Kevin said. "Just an envelope. Hendrix said it was in the safe. Your name was on it." The room felt like it shrank by half. An envelope. Yeah. Something moved across Kevin's face. Not cruelty exactly, but something comfortable with cruelty. I guess Dad understood where his priorities lay. With family. With blood. He waved his hand at her in a way that made her understand, clearly and finally, that he had stopped counting her as either. 11 years. 11 years of standing beside this man through a failed restaurant venture. Through the 2 years he couldn't find work and she'd picked up extra shifts at the clinic, through his mother's illness and then his father's slow decline. 11 years of loving Walter Marsh like he was her own father because her own father had never shown up the way Walter had. Walter had come to her convocation. Walter had held Lily in the hospital and wept the most beautiful unself-conscious tears Nora had ever seen on a grown man. "Where's Lily?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "With your sister, playing with the cousins." Kevin checked his watch. A Tag Heuer she'd never seen before. When had he gotten that? "We need to talk, Nora. About some things. About the future." "Our future," she said. "My future," he corrected. Then, like he was explaining something to someone who'd been absent for the whole conversation, "Things are going to change. I'm a different person than I was last week. I have options now. Opportunities. And I need to figure out what kind of life I actually want." Her hands found the windowsill behind her without her telling them to. "What are you saying, Kevin?" He sighed. Not unkindly, which was somehow worse. "I'm saying we got together young, we were different people, and I've been holding myself back for a long time." He spread his arms slightly, like he was trying on a coat. "Now I know who I am, and I need a partner who fits that." Nora had always been good in emergencies. 11 years working in family medicine had trained her to stay calm when everything was falling apart around her. She breathed through the dizziness. She stayed standing. "You want a divorce. I want us both to be happy." He was already looking past her towards something she couldn't see. "You're a doctor, Nora. You'll be fine. And the envelope. Maybe Dad left you a little something. Enough to get settled. Enough to get settled. 11 years. One daughter. 17 Christmases at this house. One for every year since they'd started dating. And he was offering her an envelope and a head start. "Get out," she said. "What?" "Get out of this room." The words came out quiet. She hadn't planned them. "Please go downstairs." Kevin's face hardened. "This is my father's house, Nora. Everything here is going to be mine, so let's watch the tone." He left the way he'd come in. The door clicked shut with horrible gentleness. Nora stood in front of the mirror above Walter's old dresser and looked at her own face for a long time. Same face she'd washed that morning. Same dark eyes, same freckles across her nose that Lily liked to count before bed. She looked smaller than she remembered being. Through the window she could see Kevin below on the back porch, laughing at something one of the uncles had said, a glass of wine already in his hand. Nobody down there had any idea. They were telling stories about Walter, his terrible jokes, his obsessive bird feeders, the time he'd convinced the whole neighborhood to plant milkweed for monarch butterflies. They were celebrating a man Kevin had just used as the excuse to end a marriage. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Dara. You went quiet. You okay up there? Nora's fingers wouldn't move for a long moment. She changed into something she could breathe in, fixed her face, and went back downstairs. She accepted condolences and thanked people for coming, and smiled at Walter's old friends from his Queen's University days. She played her role to the end, but she made herself a promise somewhere between the kitchen and the back door. Whatever was in that envelope, she would survive this. She had no idea yet that surviving wasn't going to be the ceiling. That Walter, even now, was raising it. Hendricks and Associates was on a quiet street in the Glebe, the kind of office that smelled like old wood and strong coffee, and the particular calm of a place where serious things got handled properly. Nora had always liked it. Today the smell made her nauseous. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes she saw Kevin's face. That new expression, the one that looked like relief at finally being allowed to be someone she didn't know. She'd spent the night in the guest room. Kevin had slept fine, from the sound of it. When she arrived in the morning the receptionist brought her straight through to Gordon Hendricks's office. It was a compact man in his 60s with silver hair and the careful eyes of someone who'd seen enough human behavior to have stopped being surprised by most of it. He'd been Walter's lawyer and closest friend for over 30 years. Nora, he said, standing. Sit down, please. She sat. Her hands were folded in her lap like she was waiting for exam results. How are you holding up? The question almost cracked her open. She wanted to tell him everything, about Kevin's face, about the watch she'd never seen before, about the way he'd corrected our future to my future, like he was correcting a grammar mistake. But she said only, I'm managing. Gordon nodded slowly. He opened a drawer and lifted out a manila envelope, old and slightly soft at the corners. Her name was written across the front in Walter's handwriting, that precise old-fashioned script she'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists, and the little notes he sometimes tucked into Lily's coat pocket. For Nora. To be opened by her alone. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. Walter brought this to me 4 months ago. Gordon said quietly. Right after his diagnosis was confirmed. He was explicit. It wasn't to appear in the official estate documents. He said it was private, between you and him. Gordon paused. He said, and I'm going to give you his words exactly. He said, Gordon, my son is about to show you who he really is. When he does, Nora is going to need this. Make sure she gets it before Kevin knows anything about it. Nora's throat closed. He'd known. Walter had known. Gordon stood and moved to the window, giving her the room. The envelope was heavier than she expected. She turned it over in her hands, traced his writing, remembered all the times she'd found little notes from him. On the counter after Sunday dinners, tucked into the books he lent her, once inside a card that said simply, proud of the doctor you've become. Proud to be your family. She'd cried at that one. Kevin had said. He always did have a flair for the dramatic. She opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a folded letter and beneath it, something that made her heart stop completely. A bank card. Her hands were shaking badly enough that she had to set everything down on the desk and take a breath before she could unfold the letter. Walter's handwriting filled the page, steady and clear. My dear Nora, if you're reading this then I've gone. And if Gordon gave you this separately, then Kevin has shown you his true face. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm truly sorry that this is how you had to find out. I've watched my son for a long time. I've watched him grow harder, more entitled, more convinced that he deserved things he hadn't earned. I kept hoping he'd change. I kept thinking love might be enough to pull him back toward the man he could be. But I know my son, and I know that the moment real money entered the picture, you would stop being his partner and start being his inconvenience. So I made plans. The bank card in this envelope is connected to an account I opened in your name 3 years ago. I've been contributing to it steadily. From my private investments, from assets Kevin never knew existed, from accounts held in my name alone, which I am entirely within my legal right to distribute as I choose. The current balance is $2.4 million. The letter fell from her hands. She read it again. And again. The number didn't change. $2.4 million. I know this is a great deal to take in, but Nora, you have earned every dollar. You drove me to chemotherapy when Kevin was too busy. You sat with me during the long nights when I couldn't sleep. You learned to make my mother's tortilla, because I mentioned once that I missed it. You gave me a granddaughter and let me be her grandfather in a way I never managed to be a father. You never asked for anything in return, not once. This money is yours. Not Kevin's. Legally, permanently, entirely yours. But here is what I need you to understand. Don't tell Kevin right away. Get yourself in a strong position first. Protect Lily. Then, when you're ready, show the world exactly who Walter Marsh trusted with his heart. I've left instructions with Gordon. He'll guide you. Trust him. You are stronger than you know, and you are deeply loved. Your father in every way that counts. Walter. She was crying before she reached the end. Real, ugly, grateful crying, the kind she hadn't let herself do since his funeral. The kind that came from somewhere beneath all the managing and coping and keeping herself upright. She pressed the letter to her chest and shook. A soft knock at the door. Nora, are you all right? She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Yes, come in. Gordon entered carefully, reading her expression. When he saw the letter he nodded. Once. Like a man who'd been carrying a weight and could finally set it down. 2.4 million, she whispered. 2.47, with interest. It's been growing. He sat down and pulled a folder across the desk. Walter and I spent months setting this up. The money is entirely yours, legally airtight. It never touches the estate. As far as the law is concerned, he made a gift to you over several years, fully documented, all tax obligations settled. Kevin can't touch it. Kevin has no claim. None. Nora looked at the bank card in her hand. A plain piece of plastic. The most ordinary looking thing she'd ever held. What do I do now? Gordon leaned back slightly. Now you take some time. Process this. Make a plan. Richard's letter was right. Don't tell Kevin yet. Get yourself legally protected first. File for divorce on your terms. Secure primary custody of Lily. He paused. Then when you're ready, you can let Kevin understand that his father saw things very clearly. Nora stood before she'd made a conscious decision to. Her mind was already moving, already building the architecture of what came next. I need a family lawyer, she said. A financial advisor. Walter anticipated that. Gordon lifted another folder. He left a list. Of course he did. There's one more thing, Gordon said carefully. Walter left a video message. For you only. Would you like to see it? Her breath caught. Yes. Gordon turned his laptop around. On the screen Walter sat in this very office. Thinner than she'd gotten used to seeing him, but with those clear, unhurried eyes that had always made her feel like the world was going to be okay. Gordon pressed play. Hello, sweetheart. Walter's voice filled the room and fresh tears came before she could stop them. If you're watching this, then Gordon gave you the envelope. Which means Kevin has done what I feared. He leaned forward, hands folded on the desk. I want you to understand something. Kevin getting the estate, that wasn't an oversight. I gave it to him deliberately. Because I needed to see what he'd do with it. Money is a mirror, Nora. It shows you exactly who a person is when they think they can finally afford to stop pretending. He paused. I prayed I was wrong about what I'd see. His expression shifted. Settled into something clear and final. But you, Nora, you would have passed that test. You would have used it to help people. To take care of Lily. To build something worth building. That's who you are. That's why you got the account, and not him. The money isn't just money, it's me saying, I saw you, knew your worth, and I wanted to make sure that at least one person in your life made sure you knew it too. He looked directly at the camera. Be smart, be careful, and be free, you've earned it. The video ended. Nora sat in the silence of Gordon Hendrix's office holding a bank card and a letter and the full weight of being loved by a man who was gone, and she let herself feel all of it. The grief, the gratitude, the fierce and sudden clarity about what she was going to do next. The lawyer Walter had recommended was named Annette Rousseau, and she worked out of a glass building on Spark Street that caught the winter sun like it was trying to hold on to it. Annette was 50, precise, and had the particular energy of someone who had seen every version of this story, and never got tired of making sure it ended right. Tell me everything, she said, once Nora had settled across from her. Start from the moment the will was read. So Nora told her. The watch. The way Kevin had said my future. The furniture that had started disappearing from the Glebe house by Tuesday, replaced, she'd learned from her sister, with pieces Kevin had apparently already ordered. The family photos Walter had taken himself, gone from the walls. The cross Nora's grandmother had given them, taken down. She told Annette about Lily being sent to her sister's place so Kevin could handle the estate. About the divorce papers Kevin had slid across the kitchen counter, on Thursday 48 hours after his father's funeral. Already drafted, already signed by his lawyer. And she told her about the texts she'd found on his phone. A woman named, she almost couldn't say it, A woman named Fiona. Can't wait for the gala Saturday. Wear the blue one. Annette took notes without her expression changing once. When Nora finished, Annette set down her pen. First thing you need to know, you're going to be fine. Better than fine. She pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to file for divorce on grounds of adultery, and file a counter-petition for full physical custody of Lily, with supervised access for Kevin. We're going to freeze your joint accounts. And we're going to let Kevin's lawyers believe, for a little while longer, that they're the ones holding all the cards. He's threatening full custody, Nora said. He said Lily deserves to grow up with opportunities I can't give her. Annette's expression didn't flicker. He abandoned his daughter to a relative for 2 weeks, while he redecorated a dead man's house. No judge in Ontario is going to hear that and think primary caregiver. She picked up her pen again. About your finances. He thinks you have nothing. He thinks I got an envelope with some letters. Annette looked at her steadily. And what did you actually get? 2.4 million. In an account in my name. Walter set it up 3 years ago. Annette was quiet for exactly 3 seconds, then she smiled. Not warm, not unkind, just the smile of someone who genuinely loved her job. Then we have everything we need, she said. We keep that quiet for now. We let Kevin think he's the one with leverage. And when he tries to use it, we show the court exactly who's been providing stability for that little girl all along. Nora's best friend Dara Okonkwo arrived at the house that same evening with takeout containers, a bottle of Riesling, and the expression of a woman prepared for war. They'd been friends since medical school. 15 years of knowing each other through exams and residencies and weddings. And the terrible in-between times. Dara was a pediatric surgeon who operated on the tiniest hearts in the country and somehow still managed to be the warmest person in any room she walked into. Nora told her everything. The money, the lawyer, the texts she'd found on Kevin's phone, the divorce papers already waiting on the kitchen counter. Dara listened without interrupting. When Nora finally stopped talking, Dara poured them both more wine. Okay, she said. First, Walter Marsh was a saint and I will be saying that at his memorial until someone stops me. Second, Kevin is a fool of the highest order. She looked at Nora directly. Third, you're not going through this alone. I'm here for every single step. I'm scared, Dara, about Lily, about what he might try. He's going to try things. People like Kevin, when they realize they've miscalculated, they get desperate. But you have a paper trail, you have Annette Rousseau and you have Walter's protection. Dara reached across and took her hand. He picked a fight with the wrong woman. 3 days later, Nora picked Lily up from her sister's place. Lily ran to her across the driveway, arms out, still wearing the same braid Nora had done 4 days ago, fraying at the ends. I missed you, Mummy. I missed you, baby. Nora held her for a long moment, breathed her in. Missed you every single minute. In the car, Lily was quiet in the way she got when something was sitting on her. Mummy, she said finally, watching the bare trees go past. Is Daddy okay? Nora's chest ached. What do you mean, love? He texted me and it sounded different. Not like him. Daddy's going through some hard feelings right now, grown-up hard feelings. But it has nothing to do with you, not one thing. Do you promise? I promise with my whole heart. When they got home, Kevin's car was in the driveway. He was in the kitchen with a glass of something amber and the particular posture of a man practicing being rich. He played perfect father for 30 minutes, lifted Lily up, made her squeal with laughing, asked about her cousins. The moment Lily went upstairs to change, the warmth drained out of his face like water from a sink. We need to sort this out, he said, sliding a folder across the counter. My lawyers have drawn up an agreement. It's fair. You keep your car, your personal things. Lily spends weekdays with me. She'll be in a better school district, and you get every other weekend. Nora looked at the folder without touching it. Every other weekend. The arrangement reflects each parent's practical capacity to provide, Nora. That's just reality. I'll have my lawyer look at it. Kevin blinked. My lawyer. Something moved across his face. Not quite suspicion. Not quite worry. Just a small disturbance, quickly smoothed over by confidence. That night, after Lily was asleep, Nora sat at the kitchen table with his divorce papers spread in front of her and thought about Walter watching the snow come down in his backyard. Thought about him driving himself to that law office, 4 months ago, still in treatment, still fighting, and making sure she would be okay. She thought about Fiona, the blue dress, the gala. An idea started forming. She called Annette. He has a charity gala this Saturday, for a hospital foundation. He's going with Fiona. I want to go. There was a pause. As what? As Walter Marsh's daughter-in-law. As someone who's been attending that gala for 9 years. She paused. As someone who belongs in that room a great deal more than he does right now. Annette was quiet for a moment. Then, Do you know what you're doing? I'm starting to. Then go. And Nora, don't say anything you can't unsay. Let them be the ones who make noise. Dara showed up Saturday afternoon with a dress bag over her arm and zero patience for doubt. You're going, she said simply, hanging the bag on the bedroom door. And you're going to look like yourself, which is all you need. The dress was deep green, clean-lined, the kind of thing that didn't ask for anyone's approval. When Nora put it on, she looked in the mirror and recognized herself. That's you, Dara said from behind her. That's exactly you. The gala was at the Chateau Laurier, chandeliers and string quartets and the particular warmth of a room full of people who believed in something. Nora had come here every year with Walter, and twice with Kevin, and once with just Lily when Kevin had cancelled last minute, and Walter had said, bring her, she'll love the dessert table. At the door a man with a clipboard checked names. When Nora gave hers his face shifted immediately. Mrs. Callahan, I'm so sorry about Walter. He was one of the founding donors of this event. He made a note. You're on the permanent guest list, of course. Walter made sure of that years ago. Nora thanked him and walked through. Kevin was across the room. New tuxedo, fresh haircut, Fiona on his arm in a blue dress that she clearly loved. He was laughing too loud at something the man beside him had said, playing the part, working the room the way someone does when they haven't earned their place in it yet. He saw Nora at the same moment she saw him. His face cycled through white, then red, then a studied blankness that she recognized as damage control. He crossed the room in 30 seconds flat. What are you doing here? The same thing I've been doing here for 9 years, Nora said. Being Walter's family. You're embarrassing yourself, Kevin. A voice behind him, warm, authoritative, the voice of a man who didn't need to raise it to be heard. Dr. Martin Fair, chair of the gala's organizing committee, someone Walter had known since before Kevin was born. I didn't realize you were speaking with Nora. He extended his hand to her. Nora. We've all been thinking about you. Walter spoke about you constantly. Called you the most dedicated person he'd ever had in his corner. Kevin's jaw tightened. He was very proud of what you've built at the clinic, Dr. Fair continued. Said you were going to do something important in this city. We're counting on you to keep coming to this table. He nodded to Kevin, polite, measured, precisely the temperature of a man who had heard things, and moved on. Fiona leaned toward Kevin and said something Nora couldn't hear. His response was sharp and low. They were already fraying. Nora moved through the room. She talked to people who had known Walter, who wanted to share stories about him, who laughed and shook their heads at his stubbornness and his generosity. An hour in, she realized she wasn't performing. She was just there. She belonged there. At 8 o'clock, Dr. Fair took the podium. Before we begin the auction, he said, I want to acknowledge someone in the room tonight. Nora Callahan, daughter-in-law of our dear Walter Marsh. Nora, would you stand? She stood. The applause was warm and immediate. Walter told me once that Nora was the person in his family who understood what this event was actually for. Who understood that the point of having resources is to use them for something larger than yourself. Dr. Fair looked at her with quiet respect. We're glad you're here, Nora. Walter would be too. Across the room, Kevin sat very still. During the break, Nora slipped away to the restroom. She was at the sink when the door opened and Fiona walked in. They looked at each other in the mirror. Fiona was younger than Nora had expected. Mid-30s, probably, pretty in an effortful way. She looked like someone who had worked very hard to be in this room and hadn't quite stopped working. That was quite an introduction, Fiona said finally. Dr. Fair is very kind. Kevin said you two were barely speaking. That you'd been growing apart for years. Kevin says a lot of things. Fiona crossed her arms. Why are you here? What are you trying to prove? Nothing. Nora turned to face her. I'm here because this event mattered to Walter, and Walter mattered to me. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm not here for Kevin. She looked at Fiona steadily. I'll tell you something, because I think you deserve to actually know it. Kevin told his father he was too busy to come to chemotherapy appointments. Too busy to come to the last birthday Walter had. Whatever story Kevin has told you about his marriage or his family or who he is, you might want to ask yourself who he was before the money. Fiona's expression didn't change, but her eyes did. And one more thing. Nora moved toward the door. Walter didn't leave me almost nothing. He left me something Kevin hasn't figured out yet. When he does, you'll want to know what side of this you're on. She walked out before Fiona could respond. Kevin arrived home after midnight, and Nora could hear him moving through the house, restless, unsettled, looking for something to land on. He knocked on the guest room door. We're done pretending, he said through the wood. I'm filing Monday, and I'm going for full custody, Nora. I have the resources to give Lily everything. She didn't answer. She heard him stand there for a moment, then walk away. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen while he was making coffee and said, simply, "Walter didn't leave me a few letters." Kevin turned. "He left me more than he left you, significantly more. And there's nothing you can do about it, legally or otherwise." She watched his face change. The certainty draining, the calculation beginning. The fear. "You're lying. Ask Gordon Hendricks. Ask the bank." She poured herself coffee from the pot he'd just made. "Your father loved you, Kevin. He just loved you enough to be honest about who you were becoming. And he loved me enough to make sure I'd be okay when you showed me." Kevin's hand gripped the counter. "That money was supposed to be mine. The money he left you is yours. What he chose to give me separately, that's mine. That's how gifts work." She picked up her mug. "Lily and I are going to be fine. Better than fine. And I think deep down, Walter knew that was the most important thing." She left him standing in the kitchen and went upstairs to wake her daughter for breakfast. The custody hearing was on a Thursday morning in February, the sky outside the courthouse a flat and serious gray. Nora arrived with Annette and found the hallway outside the courtroom unexpectedly full. Dara was there, in her good coat. Lily's teacher, Mr.WilliamStories, who had called Annette voluntarily to offer a statement about the parent he saw every single week at pickup and school events. The clinic manager who had watched Nora reorganize her shifts for 2 years to be home before Lily's bedtime. Dr. Fair from the gala, in a suit, who had come because Walter had asked him to look after Nora and he was the kind of man who kept his word. And Fiona. Standing slightly apart, not with Kevin, holding her phone with both hands, she caught Nora's eye and gave a small firm nod. Inside, Judge Adrian Chartrand presided with the particular economy of someone who had heard every version of this story and respected no one's time less than her own. Kevin's lawyer presented a case built on Kevin's financial resources and Nora's presumed inability to provide equivalently. He made reference to a period where Lily had stayed with relatives, framing it as instability. He suggested Nora had been emotionally volatile since the funeral. Judge Chartrand listened. Then she said, "What evidence do you have of actual unfitness?" Kevin's lawyer faltered. "We have a witness prepared to testify." "I'm not testifying," Fiona said clearly from the gallery. "Kevin asked me to say I'd seen Nora drinking in front of her daughter. It wasn't true. He offered to compensate me for the statement." She held up her phone. "I have the texts." The room went very quiet. Judge Chartrand looked at Kevin over her glasses. "Mr. Marsh, did you attempt to solicit false testimony?" Kevin's lawyer put his hand on Kevin's arm. What followed was methodical and thorough. Mr. O.C. described the parent he saw at every concert, every field trip permission slip, every worried early morning phone call. Dara described a woman who had rearranged her entire professional life to be present for her daughter. Dr. Thier described what Walter had told him about the kind of person Nora was, and what Kevin's father had privately feared his son was becoming. Annette presented the documentation, the spending, the absence, the harassment, the attempted suborn of perjury. And when Kevin's lawyer argued that his client's resources gave Lily access to better opportunities, Annette stood up and said, "Your Honor, Lily Marsh Callahan is 8 years old. She does not need a bigger house. She needs the parent who has shown up for her every day of her life. Financial resources are not a substitute for presence, and presence is not something Mr. Marsh has demonstrated." She paused. "And as for financial resources, Mrs. Callahan's position is considerably more secure than opposing counsel appears to believe. When the time is right, we're prepared to demonstrate that." Judge Chartrand awarded Nora full physical custody. Kevin would have supervised visits on alternate weekends, pending completion of a co-parenting program. Child support was set according to provincial guidelines. She looked at Kevin directly before adjourning. "Mr. Marsh, I want to be very clear. Attempting to manufacture evidence in a custody proceeding is not a footnote. It is a serious matter that I intend to flag for further review. I suggest you retain counsel who advises you more carefully going forward." The gavel came down. In the hallway, Dara hugged her so hard Nora's feet left the ground. Dr. Fair shook her hand and said quietly that Walter had been right about her. Mr. O.C. said he'd see Lily on Monday. Fiona found her near the elevator. "I'm sorry," she said, "for my part in any of this." "You told the truth when it mattered," Nora said. "That's what counts." Outside reporters had picked up the story, the estate, the gala, the attempted perjury. One of them called out, "Miss Callahan, is it true your father-in-law left you more than he left his son?" Annette looked at her. "Your call." Nora took a breath. "Walter Marsh was the most generous person I've ever known," she said. "Not because of money, because he paid attention. He showed up. He made the people around him feel like their lives mattered." She looked at the camera. "He taught me that what you leave behind isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in who you protected, who you trusted, and whether the people you loved knew it." I intend to spend the rest of my life living up to that example. She took Lily's hand. Lily, who had been brought by her sister to wait outside, who was now pressed against Nora's side with snow on her boots, and walked to the car. 6 months later, Nora opened a satellite family health clinic in Vanier, in a neighborhood that had been waiting for something like it for a long time. The opening was on a Tuesday in August, warm and loud and smelling of barbecue from the food trucks they'd arranged in the parking lot. Lily cut the ribbon with ceremonial scissors, standing on her toes to reach, grinning at the crowd. Walter's name was on the door. A small bronze plaque, tasteful, permanent, the Walter Marsh Community Health Center, in memory of a man who believed that care should reach everyone. Gordon Hendricks was there, looking quietly satisfied in the way of someone who had done exactly what they set out to do. Dara was there, already in conversation with 2 of the new staff physicians. Dr. Fair was there, having donated a meaningful sum to the center's operating fund. Fiona was there, too, a little tentative at the edges of the crowd. She'd started fresh after everything. New job, night classes, her own apartment near the Byward Market. She and Nora weren't friends exactly, but they'd reached something honest, which was more than Nora had expected. Kevin hadn't come. His access visits with Lily happened every other Saturday now, supervised, stiff at first but slowly improving. He was learning, in the way people learn when there's no other option. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. For Lily's sake, Nora hoped he'd get there. That was the ceiling of what she expected from him now, and it turned out to be enough. That evening, after the last guests had gone, and Lily was asleep in the back seat on the drive home, Nora sat in the quiet of the clinic's small back office for a few minutes. The building was hers, in the most real sense. Her work, her vision, Walter's trust, all of it braided together into something that would outlast all of them. She took out her phone and looked at a photo she kept there. Walter at Lily's 3rd birthday, covered in frosting, laughing with his whole body. "I think I'm doing it right," she said to the photo, to the empty room, to wherever he was. "I think this is what you meant." The money in the account had given her freedom, but what she'd built with it, the clinic, the morning drop-offs, the evenings helping Lily with her reading, the knowledge that she had chosen herself without bitterness and moved forward without cruelty, that was the real inheritance. Walter had known that too. He'd known it all along. That was the thing about being seen clearly by someone who loved you. You carried it forward. You let it raise the floor of what you thought you deserved, and then, when the moment came to be that person for someone else, you showed up, the way he had, without being asked. You showed up, and you stayed.